Balake. Where's Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Aaron.
Aaron is present, and we are ready to go to war. I am joined today by Leonard French from the Lawful Masses YouTube channel. How's it going, Leonard?
Hey, Aaron. It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I did this video yesterday about Scientology copyright striking my channel, and I was inundated with emails and comments and Twitter DMs telling me I had to talk to you. You were the #1 copyright guy on YouTube, best guy in the business.
Oh, blushing. That's nice.
And you and I also happen to have almost precisely the exact number of YouTube subscribers, which is pretty cool.
It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah. Praise Xenu.
Yeah, praise Xenu.
So what's your your specialty is copyright law? Do you extra specialize in YouTube copyright law? What's your specialty?
Sure. So yes, YouTube gets in there because it's a long story, but I originally wanted to be a copyright lawyer, YouTube, DMCA. Long time ago, I was on Slashdot reading about copyright laws and the DMCA, and I thought one day I would love to do something with that. Long story though, and short version is that there's a lot of these BitTorrent file sharing lawsuits, which are not YouTube, but they pay the bills. So that's what I do in my day job, basically. And the YouTube stuff, I take what I can get.
Got it. Interesting. Okay, so you did have an opportunity to see the 20-minute video I did on this subject, right?
Yes, the response video. I didn't see the original one that was taken down, but we did talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah. So for the viewers who may not already know what we're talking about, I had uploaded my own special edited version of an interview L. Ron Hubbard gave in 1966 in Zimbabwe. And this interview is called An Introduction to Scientology. And it's not some sort of a protected, well, I should be careful with my language here.
Well, that's a big question is it protected by something?
Well, for sure they have a copyright on everything they produce. I mean, I guess I'm assuming that, but I can tell you every L. Ron Hubbard lecture you listen to in Scientology, it begins with the all rights reserved. This lecture is, okay. There's some notice in the beginning of everything.
They would still need to prove how they came to own that particular video. And just because L. Ron Hubbard's in it doesn't automatically mean that he owns it. Would be automatically the property of the camera operator until you find out who he works for or she works for.
So actually, this was a sort of a fake interview where the person was pretending to be a legitimate journalist, but it was really just a Scientologist.
Okay, that sounds like something that they do.
But when I say it's not protected, here's what I actually meant there. It's one of these things Scientology will show for free any person who walks in the door. It's supposed to be the thing that you give to a non-Scientologist to introduce them to what Scientology is. It's not like one of these Scientology courses that you pay for. It's a video that's supposed to be a promotional video to explain Scientology. Now, does that mean they don't have a copyright? No, it doesn't mean that. But
it's a much weaker protection against a fair use if you're making fun of their promotional material versus if you're simply reposting their for-profit video.
That's right. And it's not like I took some video that I purchased from them and uploaded it to the internet. This video has been on YouTube for 15 years. And I know that doesn't mean it's not protected, but I took a version of the video that was already on YouTube. I downloaded it. I brought it into Adobe Premiere Pro, and I added my own notes. It's about a 50 minute video. And I added my own notes, partially making fun of what L. Ron Hubbard was saying, partially how he was giving dodgy answers, partially explaining the real answer as opposed to the BS answer L. Ron Hubbard was giving. It was almost like, instead of pausing the video and giving my own commentary, I was giving my commentary in typed blurbs that are appearing on screen.
Sure.
And I do still have my own copy of what I uploaded, obviously. Yeah. And so there were some questions that I had about it. Well, here was one of the questions that I said I wanted to bring an expert like yourself on. Scientology has not tried to enforce their copyright protection on these other videos that have been on the internet for 15 years. How does that impact their ability to enforce it against me?
That is a very good question and a very often asked question. And the answer is it doesn't really impact it at all. There is something in trademark law about if you don't police your trademarks, you can lose them or lose a case or something if you brought a case for trademark infringement. But not in copyright. Copyright has a 3-year statute of limitations. It's written into the law. It's not something a judge made or something as a thing for fairness in a case. So because it's written into the law, then they can do what they want with those 3 years. They can wait all 3 years and then file a lawsuit. They can see how many infringements a defendant accumulates. They can they can pick and choose which infringements to take down and which ones not to take down, to target somebody if they wanted to. And that really doesn't affect the claim for copyright infringement. Maybe you can make some arguments on damages, which is, I think, where even if this case, we'll get to it, but even if this case wasn't a fair use, which I think it is, but if it wasn't, I think there's still some issues with what are the damages, et cetera.
Right. Okay. So they're free to selectively enforce their copyright on whoever and whenever they want. So that's not really an issue in this case. What are your thoughts on, the fair use subject, the fair use argument? Do you feel this is a valid case of fair use?
So far, I do. You have to get into the weeds with these things, so sometimes details really, really matter. But what's been described to me so far is that you posted basically the entire content of their video, but you added commentary to it, you added criticism to it in the form of text overlay, etc. You posted it to a YouTube channel that is dedicated to criticism of Scientology. You posted it to a YouTube channel that's open for comments, for people to criticize and comment on it. And I reacted. It reminded me strongly of the Jehovah's Witness situation that we saw on, I think it was Reddit a few years ago. I want to say 2019, right before the year before the pandemic, when a Redditor posted, I think, a spreadsheet and a couple pictures of some promotional materials from Watchtower magazine from Jehovah's Witnesses. And then they sent a subpoena to try to identify that person through, I guess, Reddit. And there was again, long story, but in the defense, it was sort of the same situation where, well, hey, a Reddit post is open for comments. Even if someone posted a 100% copy of a spreadsheet or a magazine or something, you are at least posting it with a title and open for commentary on Reddit. You might engage in the comments on Reddit. And that was enough for the judge to be very concerned about the First Amendment rights of the poster, the Redditor, as well as the fair use of the copyrighted material. So this sounds an awful lot like that. You're in a position where they want to take down your material, not because you've infringed their copyrights, but because they don't like what you're saying about them. And that's a misuse of copyright.
Amazing. And maybe this is a two-part question of how do the courts and how do the judges think about something versus how does YouTube think about something?
Sure.
Actions that are pretty blatantly an attempt to abuse the process.
They're really skeptical at first. You really have to show a lot of abuse for anything major to happen. But if something does cross the line, the courts and the judges will take that very seriously. They would more or less understand, I think, why Scientology would be trying to use copyright to silence a critic. I don't know how inclined they would be to visit sanctions upon Scientology without a really good argument, without some kind of proof that it was truly a frivolous thing. I think the sanction you'd get if you were sued or if you sued them, I think the sanction that you would get against them would be attorney's fees. Your most of your fees and some of your costs would be paid for, but you would also have some losses in there. And that's the unfair part of it.
So if Scientology did choose to sue me and I hired you, your rate is $5,000 an hour, right?
Yeah, something like that. The courts go by a lodestar. It's I don't know what the word lodestar means, but that's what it's called. And so like they would go by whatever the rate is in the area. I think you said you were in Florida, so $400 an hour sounds about right in Florida.
There you go. So now my understanding is, it seems to me a copyright, it's YouTube that issues the copyright strike. It's the attorneys, it's, you know, Scientology's attorneys that send down a takedown notice. Like, it seems like you can't just click a button and file a takedown notice. You have to, it seems to me, send a letter from a lawyer to YouTube. Am I correct?
Well, yes, but nowadays that letter is a form on YouTube that you fill out and click a button.
Oh, okay.
And I've been the lawyer that fills that out, or I've said to my clients, hey, this is so easy, you can go fill it out. And yes, then the DMCA notice goes to YouTube, and YouTube could do nothing with it. There's no obligation in the law for them to take down the material unless they want to be protected against copyright infringement claims against YouTube. So YouTube obeys the DMCA and the DMCA takedown notice, because if they don't, then they might get hit with a copyright infringement lawsuit from the plaintiff. Twitter is being sued for this right now. Cox Communication got hit with $1 billion judgment because they weren't terminating subscribers. So if YouTube gets a takedown notice, then they have to decide what to do about the ongoing infringement. What if this is not the first time, or what if this is the first time of many? So there's also a provision in the law where they have to keep track of copyright claims, or there is some leeway here as to whether it's claims or judgments or whatever. But once there's a repeat infringer that's known to YouTube, they have to start issuing strikes and things like that. So that's how YouTube's policy operates, is once you get your first real copyright claim or DMCA takedown notice, then they issue the first strike, and then the second one with the second strike, and the third strike with the third one. That's just their policy. That's not because the DMCA says they have to do it that way. That's the way they've chosen to implement the vague terminology in the DMCA saying they have to implement a termination policy.
I get it. I get it. Okay, so this is interesting. This comment here reminds me of a version of this question I want to ask. Okay, so how can a so-called religion claim copyright? Isn't it supposed to be for everyone? Now, that's not really the question I want to ask. That's not really the question I want to ask. Like it'd be hard to imagine the Catholic Church or any Christian church trying to enforce a copyright claim on the Bible. But I don't know what the legal things there, but you're like, they want everyone to have the Bible, so why would you ever? They want everyone to read the Bible, so why would you ever enforce a copyright claim? Like, it wouldn't. Can you think of a scenario where they would?
It is, yeah. Like, so somebody's criticizing the Bible, sure, they would say, no, you can't have it because we only want people to have it who are friendly to us. Yeah, but yeah, like the trouble is, of course, is that Dianetics is a recently written copyrighted fiction book by L. Ron Hubbard that I was awakened to in the 1980s. I remember laying in my bed, and the radio would go off at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning for school, and it would say, "Hey, come get the latest book by L. Ron Hubbard. Dianetics will, flight your fancy in this new fanciful fiction book by L. Ron Hubbard." I'm like, and then later on, it's like, this is a religion? What the heck? Like, no, he advertised this as a fiction book.
Yeah, they're running infomercials late at night. Okay, but here's the version of the question here that I wanted to ask is, this video, Introduction to Scientology, this is the type of video that if you walk into a Scientology organization is likely to be playing on a loop on a screen in reception. It's literally something they want everyone to see.
Yeah.
Does this have, they're not trying to sell it to people who walk in. They're trying to show it to everyone. Sure, you can buy a copy for yourself if you want, but they're not trying to sell it to you. Does that have anything to do with either their ability to make a copyright claim or a court's likelihood to enforce one?
Copyright defense. There's something called an affirmative defense. It's basically saying, yes, I did the thing I'm accused of, but the law exempts me from liability or guilt for some reason. So yeah, I think that would be a good affirmative defense, that the purpose for which this was created was not for profit, but rather as promotional material. And maybe there's an intertwined fair use argument in there, but I think you could maybe start from a place of either like minimal infringement or no infringement, or, you know, not copyrightable or something like that. It's not as strong of an argument in my head, because, you know, of course, promotional materials can still be copyrighted, and copyright doesn't necessarily, you don't have to profit from it to have copyright protection. So it can be promotional material and they can still control it. But the fair use argument then comes back into it, because you're not out there distributing copies of it wantonly with no purpose, or let alone a different purpose from their original purpose. You know, if you were distributing their promotional material in order to sell your religion instead of theirs, you know, sure, yeah, that would make a lot more sense to me. I don't know how you would do that, but, you know, you use their interviews and their shots and everything, and then you just, like, you know, put up a thing at the end, you know, Arron Scientology, you know. Yeah, that would be copyright infringement that I would be much harder to defend.
Right. So as of right now, Scientology hasn't sued me. Obviously, we're not at that point. My counter notification is, it seems to me that YouTube basically goes, hey, when someone sends us a serious demand from a lawyer, we have to at least take it seriously. Now you get to respond. So you can either acquiesce and just put an end to this and take it down, or you can say, hell no, you guys are full of shit. And essentially, that's what I've done. And then YouTube basically goes, hey, Scientology, you've got 14 days to put up or shut up. You either have to sue this guy, or we're putting the video back up. Is that a fair representation of this process?
That's a fair representation of what the law says. I have found, not necessarily YouTube. YouTube seems to be okay, and I expect that if you filed a counter notice today, yeah, they should have it back up in 14 days, or a letter to you explaining why not. But I have seen other companies, Twitter is the one I'm thinking of, that just simply ignore DMCA notices for weeks to months, and then send you a letter saying, oh, well, we just got to your DMCA notice, and, you know, oh, well, it's too late now, never mind. Like, and then you have to go send another response and wait 6 weeks to find out if they'll do something with your response. I don't think that's the experience you're going to have on YouTube, but if it is, I'd love to hear about it, because they should be following the law, which says put it back up in 14 days.
Okay. So, but regardless of how fast they put it up, what I'm curious to know there is YouTube isn't going to, if Scientology refuses to actually put up or shut up and sue me, YouTube isn't going to continue to do their bidding for them. Like, Scientology will have to sue me, or this video will eventually go back up. Is that fair?
Yeah, the video they'll have to sue you, or the video will eventually go back up, or you'll get a letter from YouTube explaining some weird thing why they're not observing the law. They didn't like your DMCA counter notification, don't agree with your fair use, is something they have said in other cases in the past. But again, I think you have a really good case for that fair use. I don't think YouTube is going to look at a takedown notice from Scientology and just pass it on without any scrutiny, or I mean, deny your counter notice without any further scrutiny.
Right. You know, I've said a lot of times on this channel, one of the reasons Scientology, well, they have this reputation for being an extremely litigious organization, and they earned that reputation in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But they honestly have not sued anybody since practically 1993. And corporate attorneys don't seem to fully realize this. One of the reasons Scientology cannot sue me or sue other former Scientologists, has never sued Leah Remini or Mike Rinder or A&E or the production company behind Scientology in the Aftermath, is that it opens them up to discovery, and nothing that's said about Scientology by former members is false. And so, like, when I put up a video accusing by name a Scientologist of being a pedophile, even though there's no criminal charges, they can't sue me for defamation, because it opens them up to discovery, and discovery will torpedo them. And they know that. What kind of discovery could they open themselves up to if they did try to sue me for copyright violation?
Well, it would be anything relevant to their claims or your defenses, or if you sued them, your claims and their defenses. And that's really anything. but it would have to be something related to the case. So they would have to, in their complaint, they're going to make allegations related to the copyright infringement. But let's say in their complaint, to get there, they have to allege facts A, B, and C, and those are things you'd love to hear more about after discovery or in discovery. You'll get to ask about those because they made those facts, they alleged those facts in their complaint. But if you're looking for financial documents or something completely unrelated to the copyright claim, you're not going to have the right to go digging for those kinds of things. In fact, the discovery process it's compelled by the court, but it's voluntary. You will be asked to respond. You'll have to ask them questions, and then you do your own investigating on your end. What is responsive to their questions or their request? They do their own investigating, and then they produce what they say is responsive. And there's a possibility that a defendant or a party might hide something or not respond with something, and then you have to further try to compel that, which means you'll have to somehow convince the judge that thing exists, even though they're saying it doesn't. And it's going to be David versus Goliath, trying to get Scientology to produce something that they don't want to produce. I'm not accusing them, in this instance of any misconduct. I have to be very careful about that. I'm a lawyer. I don't want to accuse anyone of any misconduct, but that is something that parties have done in cases, generally speaking, in the past, and could happen here if they didn't want to produce something.
Right. It is something that people named the Church of Scientology and David Miscavige have done repeatedly in the past. Let me see. One question that I had there is, would I be able to, in your opinion, potentially request something as simple and irrefutable as if I'm being sued by the CST doing business as L. Ron Hubbard Library, I at least need to know who the directors and trustees are of this organization that is suing me, obviously.
It sounds like a pretty reasonable request for me, to me. They might oppose you on that, and you might have to go to court and explain why that's relevant to your claim. They might argue that it's not relevant. Why do you need to know who owns or runs the organization, to vindicate yourself of a claim of copyright infringement?
That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
Oh, and one other quick point. You also have the right to sue them. Just because they have filed a DMCA claim against you or takedown notice, and you're going to do or already did a DMCA counter notice, and you're waiting this 14-day period, that's an optional process. You have the right or the other option to file a lawsuit yourself and seek what's known as a declaratory judgment that you are not infringing their content, their copyright. And they would still have to defend just the same as if they sued you and you defended yourself.
Yeah. L. Ron Hubbard always said that the purpose from Scientology's perspective of suing people isn't to win. It's just to essentially drive someone into apathy, ruin them financially, and destroy their will. And this is one of the reasons why Scientology just really has no idea what to do about the SPTV phenomenon, because you can no longer financially destroy someone with legal fees when you have the ability to crowdfund, and everyone on the internet hates Scientology. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean,
yeah, it might be that the 15-year hiatus you're talking about might be when they realized that the internet was powerful enough to overcome their own misinformation machine.
Do you mean the hiatus of them not having sued anyone for a long time?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, in the Danny Masterson trial, you familiar with the Danny Masterson trial that just occurred? He's the Scientology actor that was just convicted of raping
only in passing that it happened. I haven't gotten into the details.
So his legal team, he was the one on trial, not Scientology per se, but Scientology was very seriously involved in all the testimony and everything. And there's also a civil suit going on at the same time. Anyway, one of the funniest things that happened, I think it was in the pre-trial hearing, is Danny Masterson's own attorneys said in open court, the one thing that can bring politicians together from both sides of the aisle is everyone agrees Scientology is a dangerous, destructive cult. And that was his freaking lawyers. So
wow.
So I think the internet agrees with that, which is why I go, praise Xenu. I hope Scientology does sue me, because I mean, these guys just have no idea what to do about YouTube. They used to be able to handle all their business in dark alleys and, courtroom hallways, and no one really knew what was going on, but not anymore. Not
Bright
anymore.
Flashlight is a great disinfectant.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. Here's a question Dean Johnson has. Would a judge take into account all of the Church of Scientology fair gaming as proof of this just being more abuse, or was that not really relevant to the issue, the instant issue at whatever?
I think it's a couple parts. I think you vindicate the copyright first, and assuming there's no damages or anything, then that would be sort of a step that you're going to skip, and then you would go to attorney's fees or sanctions or things. So yes, this gaming of the copyright system, it would definitely come into whether you would get your attorney's fees paid for. I think you would get your attorney's fees paid for, assuming you prevailed, because this does seem like a misuse of copyright. But you would have to argue it, and the judge doesn't have to give it to you, and they don't have to give you all of it. In fact, in a recent case that we were looking at on lawful masses, the judge is allowed to reduce your request by 30% without even justifying it. So you can ask for $1 million in attorney's fees, and they can just reduce it to 700,000, even if you really do have $1 million in attorney's fees, if they don't feel like you needed to spend that much, because there was some unnecessary spending on your side, not necessarily of any misconduct or frivolous spending, just you didn't need to go that far with the investigation or something. So the judge will only charge the other side with what they think was fair. So you get to argue about that. And then on top of that, if there has been further misconduct, a lack of due diligence, the judge has the ability on request or on their own to sanction a party with fines. Usually it's money fines for misconduct, but that's usually pretty egregious misconduct, and it usually requires further accusations in a hearing. So it's almost its own little lawsuit at the end of the thing.
Is copyright suits always a state issue, or is this a federal issue at all?
Entirely a federal issue.
Huh. Interesting.
Always a federal issue. If you ever see a state copyright lawsuit, it's or something that looks like it could be a copyright lawsuit, but is maybe a property lawsuit or something on a state level, then that can probably get removed to federal court, meaning it get transferred to federal court by either of the parties on request.
Okay, so could they? Okay, Gothic LG. Could they sue when stuff becomes public domain? Well, go ahead. I mean, the public domain means it belongs to the public, right?
Right. So if it's public domain, like we had the Bible example before, is old enough that it's not copyrighted anymore. Although I don't really know the exact circumstances. I don't think the entire thing was written at one time, as many authors and all that. It's old enough. The thing's off copyright. It's public domain. Anybody can do anything they want with it. You can reprint it yourself and sell it if you really want to. And I think lots of companies do that. Could they sue after something becomes public domain? Not successfully, because they don't own the copyright anymore. Is that video public domain? We don't know. Probably not. We're going to assume that it's not public domain. Start from a secure place, or the better safe than sorry place of it's copyrighted and they own it, until we find out otherwise. But for example, that would be a very good discovery request in that case, would be, show us every document you have related to the ownership of this copyright in this interview. And they would have to prove ownership of the copyright, not just that they registered it with the Copyright Office and got a certificate, but that they actually have some sort of title to this work.
Right. Okay, Rural SD Lawyer says, I'm not sure Leonard understood fair game based on his answer to the question. I think he's referring to the question about, would the judge basically take into consideration all Scientology's history of fair gaming people? Do you know what fair game means in that sentence?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means in that sentence. No.
Scientology has a policy called fair game, where when someone is a suppressive person, they're declared fair game, lied to, tricked, destroyed, utterly ruined. So the judge, if he's adjudicating a copyright issue, he's just going to look at the copyright issue, right? He's not going to be like, well, these guys have a horrible policy of destroying former members.
Yeah, so that's sort of, yes, my answer is the same answer, but now like times 5 or times 10, like, because yes, I thought you were talking about gaming, like somebody like using this gaming the system to try to abuse somebody, but now you mean it's like an actual expressed policy to do it.
Yeah.
That's even worse. That makes that much worse. Yeah, they shouldn't. That's Yeah, that's not going to look good to a judge, at least. Judges understand that people can be mean to each other, and that's not something a judge gets to just step in, against. But you can't be mean to each other in the sense of using legal process in a frivolous or illegal way.
Right. So Tukey says SPTV, forget that. It's now SP Network. Yeah, so Tukey, actually SPTV, when I say SPTV, that doesn't mean my channel. My channel's not SPTV. SPTV to me means all the channels who want to call themselves SPTV. So the SPTV and SPTV Network to me are synonyms. Okay, this is an awesome, I love this one. So this is fair use versus fair game. Oh my God, I love it. Okay, and then we have what's this one? I don't know, James. Yay, y'all took my recommendation. You're awesome, Aaron and Leonard. Hey, Goldie. Goldie's the moderator in the live chat. Yeah, I got so many people telling me to contact Leonard. By the way, what does your channel name mean? What's Lawful Masses?
So it's sort of a play on words. There's two things going on there. One, I wanted a title for a YouTube channel or content channel to talk to the masses of people who I'm going to talk to them about the law and legal stuff. So they're masses of lawful people. But then I'm also a recovering Protestant who was raised in the church myself, and now I'm a card-carrying member of the Satanic Temple, and much to the chagrin of my mother. And sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where were we going?
The Lawful Masses.
Oh, Lawful Masses. And so Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. is when church starts. So Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. is when I do my mass to my Lawful Masses. So it's a lawful mass, like to my congregation.
So what is the Satanic Temple?
The Satanic Temple is it's an organization that, the way I like to explain it is, it's sort of a flip of Christianity. For me, Christians have a lot of good virtues in name, and then my experience has been the Christians that I know who brought me up and everything, they sort of failed to pursue those ideals. But the Satanic Temple sounds like it's worships Satan in name, but then it actually pursues these wonderful virtuous ideals that I was neglected in the church that was supposed to be visiting those virtuous ideals upon me. So it's got 8 tenets that are rather good and virtuous, and seeking things like knowledge and understanding and treating people equally and empathy for all in life and things like that. And the organization formed as a church pursues religious liberty issues throughout the United States. The latest of which was when they opened or wanted to open an after-school Satan club at my high school, my old high school. And the local area went bonkers about it, because it's a very Christian religious area, and they did not like the idea of a Satanist organization in their school.
Yes, I would imagine so. Does this make Thanksgiving dinners a bit uncomfortable? Or Christmas?
Yeah. We don't talk about it.
Oh my goodness. Let me see. There was another question here from Stephen Britton. How long does copyright persist after the creator dies?
70 years after the life of the author is the latest extension. And if it's a corporate creator, it's 120 years total, I think.
Interesting. Awesome. All right. Well, that was the last super chat. If anyone has any last minute questions for Leonard, this is final call. Let me see. So have you, I mean, if Scientology does sue me, which they won't, but if they do, I'll definitely hire you, even if we have to hire other attorneys in Florida.
Right.
Yeah. We'll have a whole team. We'll have a whole team going on.
We'll figure it out. It doesn't sound like it would be that terribly complicated of a lawsuit. Now, I'm saying, I don't mean to discount it. I'm just saying, compared to corporate mergers and acquisitions or huge amounts of electronic discovery, or criminal matters where people are going to jail, this is going to be a couple witnesses and some discovery requests, but it's a doable case for you to defend. I mean, I've seen a lot of cases where people want to defend themselves, but they have absolutely no way of affording it or even getting the time and handling the stress of it. And you seem like you're in a great position to defend yourself. So yeah, that I would love to be part of that case. But like you said, I have serious doubts that they would ever pursue anything. So I think it would have to be you that would pursue something, which I think you have the right to. But I also, if I was giving you like fiduciary duty, like what's in your best interest is maybe not to go after them and just sort of let sleeping dogs lie and see what they do next.
Well, this is one of the other interesting aspects to this is Scientology kind of relies on this reputation that it has, at least amongst its members, that RTC and CST, the organizations that own the copyrights and the trademarks, vigorously and energetically protect and defend Scientology's trademarks and copyrights. So it's almost like if they don't actually sue me, and all they did was try to cry to YouTube and get them to take my video down, and I emerge victorious because they backed down, that is a bad look for Scientology. And I'm going to be screaming it from the mountaintops, right? Yeah. It's going to show that David Miscavige is all hat, no cattle. All bark, no bite. Scientology can't even defend its copyright against an SP on YouTube. If they can't defend a copyright in that situation, when can they ever defend a copyright? Like, it makes them look really weak and pathetic, almost as weak and pathetic as they are in reality, one might say. By the way, have you seen my David Miscavige vintage plush toy?
Yes, I included your picture on that in the thumbnail that I put on my live stream. My wife asked, like, what in the world is that? And I'm like, oh, that's like David Miscavige. You have to see this.
That's right. Fun fact, though, this is life size. This is actually life size. Okay, let's see. There was a couple more questions here. Rob Deltoni. What about filing under the Case Act? What is the Case Act?
It's a great question. The Congress recently enacted. So the only thing that's happened to copyright law recently is that we now have a copyright board to see sort of small claims, $30,000 and less. But the claims are consensual. So it has to be something where both parties consent to have the claim adjudicated by the Copyright Claims Board. So you could, or they could, file a claim in the Copyright Claims Board. You pay a smaller fee. There's less at stake, but you could get sort of a lesser copyright ruling. It's meant to be like a small claims court for copyright, so that these large costs and fees can be avoided. So if you want to avoid those large fees and costs, and they want to avoid those large fees and costs, then they can go to the Copyright Claims Board. You can consent to that. If you don't consent to that, if either of you don't consent to that, then we're back into federal district court in Florida and having to do all of that again.
Got it. Interesting.
So it's possible. It's possible, but I think unlikely if the point was to turn the screws to you.
Right. So, I mean, I mentioned this to you before, but, a couple of years ago, I ran for Clearwater City Council, and over a 6-month period, just using YouTube videos, I raised over $70,000 for what is a relatively unimportant. Oh my God. That's the duck hat they were talking about.
This is the duck hat they're talking about. Yes.
I thought they were calling this a duck hat or something. Oh my God.
I'm trying to figure out how you put the duck hat on with the...
What's the story behind the duck hat though?
My wife knits. And I think she really wanted to knit me an absolutely ridiculous hat because I wear ridiculous hats on my show. So this is the duck hat.
There you go. All you're full of surprises today.
It's only 85 degrees in this room and I'm wearing a duck hat.
Oh my God. So yeah, I'll tell you, between raising $70,000 for a city council race, a few days ago, me and Mark Headley in a 2-hour live stream raised $8,000 for the Aftermath Foundation. We've raised tens of thousands of dollars for other issues. I've got zero concerns about whether Scientology is going to try to bankrupt me with legal fees. We don't have to worry about that. It's Scientology that done messed up this time, because no matter what, they're going to look foolish and silly and weak at the end of this whole process. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it all day, every day.
Sounds like you're ready for them. I like it. I like it.
All right, everyone.
Not everybody is ready to go to the mattresses, you know?
That's true. That's true. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope this has been educational. We'll keep you apprised of any updates and everything, and we'll do hopefully many more chats for a variety of reasons. How about that? Thanks for joining me, Leonard. I really appreciate it. And I wish I had I have your channel linked in the description down below, and I'll put it. I'll pin a comment in the comment section for people to go over and subscribe to your channel called Lawful Masses with Leonard French.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.